live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Blake, I tweeted this before the show not that long ago,
I was going to bring it up to you. Okay, go ahead.
A quick little recap of what's happened over the last 2 days during ACC Media Days and Big Ten Media Days. Curt Cignetti and Rhett Lashley took shots at the SEC, completely unnecessary, unprompted. Ryan Day in a video with friend of the show, Josh Pate, where he was walking up to him to interact with him, had his coat jacket tucked into his pants like a total doofus. Mike Norvell and PJ Fleck, we're going to talk about Norvell today, frantically screaming into the microphone at their press conferences. The weirdest press conferences I've ever seen during a media days. And we found out that Wake Forest new head coach Jake Dickert soaks his burgers before he cooks them in Sprite, which sounds disgusting.
Well, the new Wake Forest offensive coordinator also used to be on Nick Saban's team and used to mock him all the time, too.
Yes, I forgot about that. There's a walk-on receiver?
Ezel. Yeah, walk-on receiver. So listen, the Ryan Day thing, I kind of forgive, like, hey man, you got to go to the bathroom.
Come on, no, you got to,
dude,
you got to have like some awareness.
Okay, you're right. He's got to have the social awareness. Okay, however, of all the things that has gone on the last 72 hours, that's the most forgivable for me.
That's the most forgivable, but it's the most embarrassing in my eyes because he didn't know that he did it.
I think Curt Cignetti.
It's not embarrassing. He's talking shit. It's football. He's talking shit. I don't think that there's anything totally wrong with that.
Well, when you had a season last year and the teams that you played went 67 and 89 in the regular season, that's pretty embarrassing too. And you're taking shots at the SEC. I'm sorry, it's pretty embarrassing.
I wouldn't classify it as embarrassing. I would classify it as misinformed and misguided. I will concede that.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're about to talk about Mike Norvell, and listen, I even think today PJ Fleck, going out there, I'm watching PJ Fleck, and he goes, guys, did you know that we've had at least one first or second rounder selected every single year that I've been at Minnesota? And I'm like,
has he?
That's what he said. And I'm like, well, hold on.
He had Ariante Ursary this year. He had Tyler Newman last year.
Well, it's what he said. I mean, in the 7 years that he's been there. I mean, here's my thing. We're bragging about that.
Whoa!
Come on.
Wait. Hold on. It's Minnesota. How likely is it for Minnesota to have a first or a second? That's better than most of the Big Ten. Texas went a stretch where they didn't have first-round picks for like a very long time.
Yeah,
I would give them a little bit of props for that.
The problem with that is Vince Young existed, and now look at Texas. I mean, come on. Come on. It was a weird couple of days, Joe. Let's just be honest.
That I will agree. I don't mind him saying that. I actually didn't mind PJ Fleck's presser compared to how uncomfortable I was watching Mike Norvell's. Fleck was a little intense. Didn't need to be yelling, but like at times it was good intensity. I also have to shout out before we do get into the topics today. I loved that Syracuse sent their punter. They could have sent a bunch of guys, and they sent their punter. And I respect that.
Literally, I got on Twitter, and your tweet was the first thing that I saw about Fran Brown. I'm going to continue to say this. As someone that has a son, there's literally only a handful of coaches that I'd literally send him to. Like, and I'm being dead. Like, I would be 1,000% confident that Fran Brown will take care of my kid. Like, listen, man, for what it's worth, I think that gets missed. We talk about money and facilities and all that. Hey, I don't want my son going to the University of Georgia and getting in any vehicle. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, those are things that I'm like, hey, man, Kirby, I mean, now we got commits doing it. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, but we haven't talked about that. That is That is in the most insane uncovered piece of this offseason that I think has been joked about but swept under the rug. But
I mean, there's literally nothing Kirby Smart can do about people that are committed to his team. They're not under his, like they're trying to come after him. Well, they're trying to come after him for a kid that's committed that's not even technically on his team.
Yeah, so he's not under supervision or anything. He has no control over that. It's just it's comical that this is extended. And next thing we know, there's going to be middle schoolers that are getting pulled over for traffic violations that go to Georgia football camps.
In fairness, let me say this. A month and a half ago, I went to the great state of Georgia, and I had to go through Atlanta and Atlanta traffic to get to my brother's house because my nephew graduated from high school. Joe, you can ask my wife. In a 10-mile radius, we had to have seen at least 8 state troopers. We had to see at least 4 of them have somebody pulled over. Like it is out of control. I've never seen anything like this before in my life. And here's the thing. I might be undershooting it. I'm dead serious. I looked at Megan. I'm like, Ben cannot, as heavy as our son's foot is on the little ride-on scooter that he's got right now, there's no way that he can come to the great state of Georgia. So, look, I mean, we're out. Ben Ruffino is out of the state of Georgia for the next couple of years until that can get cleaned up. But it did get swept under the rug. But, hey, man, I don't mind if my players got a couple of misdemeanors, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
I mean, you can't. Can you play good defense without a couple misdemeanors?
I have no comment.
I mean, Troy Polamalu stole Head and Shoulders right out from under him.
We have a very goofy super chat from Elks, by the way, before we get into the topics.
Did you know Pop-Tart ice cream sandwiches existed? I saw Mike Golick Jr. post that today. Yeah.
I want to try them. It's gotten my attention. I have seen them a couple times in the grocery store. I do want to try them.
I've never seen them. What's your favorite Pop-Tart, by the way?
I am.
There's only one answer. Sugar. This is why this show is meant to be.
Okay.
This is why me and you are meant to be. Because
sociopaths answer with the blueberry or the strawberry ones. Those ones are fine.
Joe, do you know that one of my highest rated viewerships ever on YouTube was me going stupid about Pop-Tarts? And about how brown sugar is the best? Yes.
Well, it's the only appropriate answer.
Put the brown sugar Pop-Tarts in the toaster, get a large thing of milk, and we're off to the races, baby. Don't microwave these puppies. You got to put them in the toaster.
I wonder if they make ice cream sandwiches that are the brown sugar.
Oh, if they do, Pop-Tarts in trouble. Ruffino and Joe show is legitimately going to fund the Pop-Tart Bowl. That's all that I know. By the way, can you do me a quick thing? Can you say roast 3 times? Humor me.
Roast, roast, roast.
Say it 3 more times.
Roast, roast, roast.
What do you put in the toaster?
Bread. You're not going to catch me. You're not going to catch it. I did. You thought that it's July. If anyone can't tell,
it is July. You know who else had some really weird comments?
Who's that?
Mike Norvell, which we're going to get to in just a second. But before we do get to Mike Norvell and the ACC and Big Ten Media Days, we do need everybody to do us a favor and hit the like and share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. But, Joe, there were some weird things that were happening today. And let's start off in the ACC as Mike Norvell took the podium today at ACC Media Days, and for 15 minutes, I got screamed at. I don't know what to make of Mike Norvell at ACC Media Days today. He did bring up the Thomas Castellanos situation about him talking about Alabama. So did Castellanos. We'll get to that as well. Yeah. But, Joe, my God, Norvell was a little bit unhinged today.
Yeah, I'm not going to, go super far to cast some accusation at him. I'm not going to do that. But I tweeted about how uncomfortable he came off during his presser. And I had a couple people immediately text me that were there. And they were agreeing. They're like, yeah, this is really weird. This is really uncomfortable. I don't know. It seems like he's overcompensating for the lack of energy that he had during the season, that he's trying to show up and seem like he's super intense. For anyone who missed it, he didn't have any quotes that if you read an article that were really outlandish, they were pretty normal quotes. They were a little bit on the more intense side, but they were your typical coach quotes. But if you go and watch the full opening comments that he had and then the responses to the questions, he has this weird dead look in his eyes, and then he was screaming into the microphone and almost stammering with these weird verbal fillers. I've listened to Mike Norvell talk. I've listened to him do press conferences. I've listened to him after games talk about serious issues, talk about more comedic, funny things. I've listened to him talk. He's one of the biggest voices in the sport. He's one of the biggest coaches. I don't want to hear any Florida State fans say, oh, no, that's how he always is. He's not. There was something off, and it feels like Norvell is starting to feel the pressure. I'm not trying to go crazy here with like making an assumption and connecting the dots, but anyone who watched that press conference can agree with me that something didn't seem right, and you agreed with me when I was texting you about it.
Well, I wasn't watching it live. I had some family things going on, was able to find it and went back about 10 minutes because you're blowing me up when this was going on. And I'm like, all right, I kind of thought you were a little bit exaggerating, to be honest. I'm like, there's no way he's literally like really screaming in the microphone. I'm not 5 minutes into the press conference, and you're not wrong. Like, oh my God, I felt like, to what you said, the first impression that I got was that he was going out of his way to say, too much coach speak at an intense level. Like, hey, I'm reading and listening to everything that each one of y'all are saying, and it's pissed me off. Buddy, with all due respect, and I mean this with all due respect, you went 2-10. What did you expect that was going to happen? When you lost to Memphis last year and you lost all these games, what did you expect guys like us who get paid for a living to do this would come out here and say? But Joe, you said that there was coach speak. It was more than that. He was trying to motivate his team through an ACC press conference as if they're going to listen to it.
Yeah,
like, we're taking this day by day. We're taking this step by step. I don't want sidekicks. I want guys that are going to step up. What does that even mean? So I guess the question really is, Joe, I'm not saying are they in trouble, but this was a little unhinged. And I got to be real with you. If you talk to anybody that was around Memphis the time that he was there, Joe, there wasn't, without going into the weeds on this, it wasn't a great relationship there with Mike Norvell. Like, that even ended somewhat abruptly to what things that were going on there. Joe, the bottom line is he was feeling the heat. Now, I went also back to the individual Mike Norvell press conference from the one before he went to the main podium. Mm-hmm. Joe, he was snarky with every single media member. He was kind of like,
I didn't catch that part.
Buddy. Because like in the SEC, the ACC does this as well, and the Big Ten did it as well today. He was going in there, and they would ask a question. He'd go, well, what do you think that we've been working on? And I'm just like, golly, man, this is a little unhinged.
I think that the overall tone right now, and look, I need to be very clear. I know that some Florida State fans might not be super forgiving of our commentary about him.
What commentary?
Right now,
you can't be mad at us because you went 2-10.
Well, because the commentary we're having right now is we're going beyond what's in front of our faces to take. We're not taking shots, but it's gonna. Come it was
off as us in my face shots. Today. It was directly in your face today too. Right, him screaming in the microphone.
Right. It's gonna come off as us taking shots, but we're not trying to. I think that Norvell's a good coach. I think that there's recoverability here. I think that the version of him that we had in 2023 was a tremendous ball coach. He was a top 10 coach, maybe pushing top 5 at the time in the sport. The version of him today felt very far off. I feel like a lot of aspects of his program are getting away from him. And it comes with the conversation and the commentary about Tommy Castellanos' comments about Alabama. I thought that his response to that was almost not wrong, but weird. Like I thought that him the quote that he had on this is, well, I watched the work. I believe in Tommy. I believe in our football team. Anybody can get on a microphone and say whatever they want to say. And Tommy is a very respectful young man. That's put in the work. He has had his own journey and experiences. I know that his heart when it comes to it. So I'm grateful for who he is and what he's all about. And that's what I told him after his comments. We're not here to try and speak ourselves into a victory, which you quite literally did. We're trying to earn a victory. And you better show up every single day and let's go be what we're capable of being. So like, this is where, and that was where the sidekick comment was in there as well. It feels like a lot of contradictions. You're saying you don't want to talk yourself into a victory, but you just allowed your quarterback to triple down on talking into a victory. And then you supported him talking your way into a victory. This is not good coaching right now. This is not.
You should have come out there and say that we respect the University of Alabama and our opponents. That's what you should have said.
That was it. That was all.
Right. That's all you had to say. Alabama's a great team. They've been a great team for 2 decades. Kalen DeBoer is really getting that thing moving. We got to go out there and see if we can take them down. But Joe, to be honest with you, the comment on Thomas Castellanos, in a subtle way, he backed him. He didn't go out there and say anything about the players or that Thomas is going to do what he said he was going to do. Joe, read the comment. He literally backs him here. He's put in the work. I know his journey. I know his heart. He's been working his butt off. No mention of Alabama. No mention of, hey, not taking the shot. I felt like I saw a guy today that literally before he went in there took a whole bunch of pre-workout and was just all over the place. Like ADD all over the place. And as someone who's struggled with that in his life, I know how difficult that can be. But I felt like he was backing Thomas Castellanos for the comments against Alabama. And Joe, listen, you can say that I'm pro-SEC or this show's pro-SEC, but let's just get real here. Joe, what's going to happen if they go out there in week 1 and get blown out by Alabama? Like, we're going to go back to these comments and say, buddy, you walked up there with your chest poked out, screaming in a microphone, and you did nothing about it. Like, that's every single thing that we're going to bring up here. By the way, Joe, the last 14 games, if that happens, he's going to have a massive loss to Georgia. He's going to go 2-10 last year, and he's going to have a blowout loss to Alabama. Now, I don't know. Here's the thing about Florida State on the field, excuse me. Joe, we have absolutely no idea who they are.
No.
We have no idea what Gus is going to look like there. We have no idea what Castellanos is going to look like in his system. There's so many questions that we have no idea what we're going to make of them. But it gets to a place where you can't overreact to a situation that's in the past that much. You know what it also feels like to me? Joe, I don't mean this in a wrong way, but if I'm paying a guy $10 million a year, I want you to flush that and start focusing on moving to the future. It feels as if that he has not flushed that. In reference to Castellanos, Joe, you got to tell me, it feels to me that he was in a subtle way backing his quarterback and saying that I have a lot of faith in him and he's put in the work.
Well, I actually think we should remove the word subtle. I think that he's been quite direct in backing his quarterback, which
well, there you go.
What shocked me. And you brought up what the biggest part about this and why I know that we've created a bit of a divisive issue on this channel because we've talked about this a lot. We talked a lot about the Diego Pavia comments. We've prompted a lot of responses from people who think that you should be allowed to talk shit. Some people agree with this and think that you shouldn't be allowed to unless you prove yourself. At the end of the day, as you just said there, if you get blown out in week 1, which we're not saying that they get blown out. We did predict that in a segment, but at this juncture of what we're having in this conversation, we are not saying that they get blown out. But if they do, that is going to direct so much negativity and pressure towards this football program. So much. This team went 2-10 last year. They need to start stacking wins. Positivity. Focus. Not talking smack about a team that has been more successful than you over the past 2 decades, and was a lot more successful than you last year when they were in the first year of their new head coach after they lost the most elite head coach in the history of college football.
Right.
It's just bringing unnecessary negativity. And I'm surprised that we don't hear more maybe about this impacting them in recruiting. You know how easy it is to negatively recruit against a program that has all of these distractions happening around it? It's easy.
Well, in reference to recruiting, it's not like that they're killing it. I mean, they've done a lot better from the high school ranks than they have in the past, because last year they didn't do anything worth a damn. But, Joe, they're still 15th in the country in recruiting, which, again, at Florida State, it's better than what it's been. Okay, I think it's the big corner. What was his name? Kenyon?
Yeah, Chauncey Kennan.
Right, couple of weeks ago, or the beginning of July, they committed. But, Joe, I don't think that's the level you should be recruiting at Florida State. The question's going to be from Florida State people, well, what if we win? The problem that I have in this, and I know that we've gotten a lot of flack from people talking about the Diego Pavia thing, or even people that will have issues with this. You went 2-10. Castellanos, you got benched. You got to go out there and prove some stuff to people before you go out there and start taking subtle, or not even subtle. You start taking shots. And here's the thing, Joe, about this whole Castellanos thing. At least Diego Pavia had the nuts to do it on camera. At least he had the nuts to go out there and do it and say it and never back down. At least Pavia and Clark Lee went to the microphone and said, hey, man, you can laugh at me all you want, but you know what? We're going to play meaningful games in January. And if you don't like that, I don't care, because that's what we believe. All right, I don't agree with you, but just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean that there's some level of respect there. But here's the thing with Pavia and that situation that's not here. They didn't point out any single person. They didn't point out a team. They didn't point out players. They didn't say that they were going to dominate in the game. They didn't say any of that. By the way, Diego Pavia beat Alabama.
Well, I think that's one of the things that we kind of forget when we have these conversations, by the way. The sting of the quote that is not brought up enough, it's brought up a lot to credit by On3, who owns the original article. They keep referencing the quote. He said, Nick Saban is not there to save them. Right. That is where the disrespect comes from. And that's where I think the disappointment for me with all of this is that Mike Norvell does not come out and say, like, hey, we respect Coach DeBoer. We respect Coach DeBoer. We respect this Alabama
Which is
program.
What Mike Norvell should have said.
That is the part that bothers me about this, is that, and I freaking hate getting responses from people that react to us talking about this, being like, what are you talking about? It is a gladiator sport. Respecting your opponent is a part of this.
Joe,
even your most hated rivals you respect.
Well, Joe, we almost had a kid that died a couple of years ago on the field. I mean, like, I'm not trying to bring that up, but I'm literal.
I think it paints the picture of respecting your opponent and going, like, the stakes that are on the field every single time.
Every single time. And again, you went 2-10. Nobody's going to remember that you went undefeated in the regular season a couple of seasons ago. Joe, a monkey could go 2-10 at Florida State. I mean, look, I'm not trying to be rude, but again, with the infrastructure and everything that you have going on, 2-10 has no business being in the conversation. Do we realize what we're saying here?
Yeah.
They gave the man a massive extension. He's out there yelling and being snarky with media. He's backing his quarterback after the comment saying Saban's not there to save you anymore. Buddy, man, it's crazy. But I got to tell you this. I'm going to bring up one last thing here that I got to throw in there. You know who loves every single part of this?
Who?
Kalen DeBoer. Because you want to find out if a team is bought into your head coach or not, watch how they react week one. Oh, buddy.
Good point.
You got massive – Joe, I'll never forget this. Jay Johnson, okay? I feel like I learned so much from the man in his coaching. Purposefully last year in a game got kicked out. Purposefully. He'll never admit it, but I know that he did. Was sticking up for his freshmen that could not throw strikes and literally went off on an umpire. Just went, tattooed him. Absolutely went after him. He gets tossed. LSU scores 8 runs in the last 2 innings and they win. Sometimes you do stuff, and when things like this occur, you see how a team buys into the head man, right? Saban was the GOAT at one thing better than anybody else: motivation. See, when you play college football 26 and it's got motivator, recruiter, tactician, everybody says you need to go to recruiter because that's what Saban was. Yes, maybe so. But he also knew how to push every single person's button to make them better. Now you're going to find out what Kalen DeBoer can do and the buttons that he can push. You better be ready for week 1. You cannot make these statements and then fall flat on your face. Last thing I'd say here. Joe, remember the last time this happened and the University of Alabama was involved? Because I do.
When was this?
The University of Southern Cal came out there barking and yelling at Bama players.
Oh, no,
and they were coming out. And you remember this? And they were coming out there crawling, okay? Talking shit for weeks. They got blown out. Now, every single month, that clip gets shared at least once. When you do stuff like that, you better be able to back it up. Because I promise you, when we talk about this game and recap in week 1, you're not getting any leniency from us.
No. Look, I hope for the sake of getting to watch a good football game that it's close. But I think purely for the reaction, if it does end up being lopsided, it will be even more fun to talk about. I mean, the narratives will be outlandish. The narratives will be all over the place.
I don't hate Diego Pavia
more than 2 scores.
Well, I don't hate Diego Pavia saying I hate Tennessee. The same way I actually love Jeremiah Smith going out there and saying I despise the University of Michigan. Great. That makes me feel great. At least there's some real college football normalcy. Going out there and taking a shot about an opponent that's not even close to being a rival to you is dumb.
And in the manner that they did it, by disrespecting the quality of the program because Saban's gone is where the line is drawn.
I hope they use that same energy that they took the podium with today in the workout room, in the weight room. Please, dear God. All right.
Yeah.
Joe, a couple other things here from ACC Media Days. Joe, a very good interview was conducted today, I thought, with Carson Beck, the new Miami quarterback.
It was yesterday, but
what did I say today? Yesterday with Carson Beck. He was also on college football as well, or college football on XM as well, talking about the rehab that I want to throw in here. Joe, Carson Beck talked about mainly 2 things at ACC Media Days. Number 1, he talked about his rehab, but number 2, talking about getting those turnovers down that plagued him at Georgia a year ago. Now that Miami has a new signal caller, now that Cam Ward has moved on to the Tennessee Titans, your thoughts about Carson Beck, and now we're getting what seems to be a healthy Carson Beck going into the season for the University of Miami.
I'm on the same page with you here that I was really impressed by Carson Beck's comments. I think that this could easily just be looked at as like a total dud. It means nothing. He's just saying what he needs to say. I thought that this displayed a lot of ownership for Carson Beck and what his problems were last year. The exact quote that he gave yesterday: last year, there were just times where I just tried to press too much. I tried to be Superman and save the day. That's not what we need. I just need to be myself. That was a talking point that I had on this show, that many other analysts had on their shows and their platforms, that it felt like Carson Beck was not playing like the version of himself that we saw in 2023. They were throwing the ball too much. He was looking for the home run. It felt like he was reading into the hype that was surrounding him, that he was going to be a top 10 pick, that he was going to be a Heisman Trophy winner, that we all talked about in the preseason. And because he fell into it, he felt like he had to be this superhero that he didn't need to be. He just needed to be on time and to keep the offense rolling, and everything else was going to work itself out. I love that he is aware enough in understanding what led to his mistakes. I think that there are a lot of guys in the history of the sport, especially quarterbacks, that I'm not trying to infer will assess blame elsewhere, but aren't able to realize what went wrong. He is spot on what held him back. And for a guy that a lot of people spent the whole offseason criticizing his maturity, criticizing his focus, all of those things about Carson Beck, I thought that this was a very mature.
Doesn't like watching football.
Right. I thought this was so on point, and I really like this answer from Beck. And I think that it's telling that we should expect that this year is going to be a lot better.
Joe, can I throw something out very odd to you, and you tell me? I know that you covered the draft, so I want to bring this up to you. Think of some of the top quarterbacks in college football a season ago. I'm just going to throw out some random ones. I'm not saying they're all the top, but think about this for just a moment. Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Allar. What do all of them have in common? What all of them have in common is they had a massive interception rate based off of what we've seen them play from the year before. Let me give an example. Carson Beck as a junior was a 72% completion percentage guy. He only had 6 turnovers as a junior, and they found one game short of getting into the playoff. They lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game. Joe, he went down to 64%. He doubled his interceptions that last year from the year prior to 12. And I thought that there was a lot of interesting things around college football a season ago. Joe, every top quarterback that we talked about, Cam Ward had more interceptions too, just throwing that out there. Everybody had more picks. I don't know what to make of that. It's still rolling around in my brain as to why all these quarterbacks had struggles a year ago. Could it have been the head comms in the helmets? I thought that was a little interesting because it was the only real massive things that changed. You're hearing the coach saying, hey, there's cover 2. No, wait, it's cover 3. All these kinds of crazy stuff. Joe, I look at a guy like Carson Beck and say, you could easily get his junior year performance again. Or I guess technically redshirted sophomore performance again. I thought that he was so much better that year than he was the season prior. Now, I thought he did play on time a little bit more, but I think that there's something that he's going to get at Miami this year that he didn't get at Georgia a season ago, a consistent run game. He's not having to go up against the same level of talent every single week. Now, Georgia had the number 1 strength of schedule in the country last year. Nobody can dispute how many games that they played against top-tier opponents. Joe, they played 4 playoff teams. 4. They played all of the teams in the SEC that made it. They played Clemson in the beginning of the season. What's interesting about what we saw from Carson Beck was I thought some things around him fell around him. I'm not saying that he was taking a shot at Georgia because he put it on himself. But, Joe, remember the SEC championship game? Remember what happened when Dylan Bell, the bomb that he threw to Dylan Bell and he drops it? Remember all the games like Florida in the beginning of it where he has 3 interceptions, but the 3 drives before that, he's got 3 critical drops on 3rd down. I don't know what to make of Carson Beck at the current moment because the guy that I saw as a redshirted sophomore, I felt like was just, oh my God, this is too much. We can't run the football. Guys aren't getting open. There's drops everywhere. I got to force this ball for us to get a first down. I can't keep putting this on our defense. I got to be real with you. I think his comments are spot on. I think that what I heard today was a young man who self-reflected better than I have heard any other quarterback. I've heard Garrett a lot, and I think he's done a really good job. I actually heard Drew Allar, and I think he's done the same thing. I think you hit the nail on the head, man. All the shit that we were talking about him with the Cavender girl and all his car getting stolen and all that stuff, I think you were right, man. I think you're seeing someone who's a little bit more locked in. But the only thing I'd say, here was the comment that he ended this press conference with. I went back and looked at I went back and watched all my mistakes from a season ago. And I kept thinking to myself, why did I make that silly throw? Remember the guy who said I don't like watching film? Well, it seems like he's doing it now.
Yeah, I think that comment that he had last year was taken aggressively out of context. And I think that naturally happens. There's been plenty of guys that have talked about this or not talked about this, but have had quotes similar to this. And every outlet always takes it and runs with it. So you're right. I'm sure that he was taking the reflection very seriously. And I think the way that he talked about it made me feel pretty good about it without him having to outwardly try to defend himself. I don't mean to make Florida State a punching bag, but here we are. Notice the difference. And I'm purely using this as an example of showing how great of a young man Carson Beck is. Tommy Castellanos did not have any self-reflection after he got benched at Boston College and went out of his way to talk about how he dominated the ACC when he didn't. He was mediocre. He did not dominate. He was a good runner. That's nice big plays, but he was not a good quarterback to the point where Bill O'Brien benched him. And he is talking up that they're going to win in week 1. Carson Beck is acknowledging that he made a ton of mistakes and he has to be better. That he has to get better. That is the difference to me, and why I think that this means more than anyone wants to recognize. I think that this headline in Miami circles got talked up quite a bit. Maybe in ACC circles got mentioned by some people. But I think that this deserves a lot more love for him being aware enough to realize that what was holding him back.
Can I ask you a question that's going to be, oh man, and our Georgia people are going to get mad at this.
Uh-oh.
How much was this on him, or was on Georgia too?
I had said this before, that I thought 50% of this was on Bobo. I don't think it was on Georgia.
Well,
I thought that it was on Bobo.
The drops aren't on Bobo.
The drops are on his receivers, obviously, but what's on Bobo is they're throwing the ball. Like, I went back, I've rewatched the Alabama-Georgia game like 5 times because I've watched different prospects participate in that game. And I've kind of like
a few posters from that game.
Well, because there's a lot of amazing plays from that game.
Right.
But the one thing that, like, I remember, that was one of the worst games where, like, first and second down, they're throwing the ball in like the first, second quarter. And it's like, just try to run the ball. Just try. You're going up against an Alabama defensive line that's one of the weaker ones that you faced.
Yeah.
Just try to run the ball. When you try to throw the ball way too much, I can literally spotlight multiple games where offensive coordinators cooked themselves by trying to throw the ball too much. LSU versus Alabama, we talked about it. They tried to throw the ball too much early and it killed them. Ole Miss versus Kentucky tried to throw the ball too much early, and Georgia did it the whole year. So I think that there is definitely some ownership on Georgia not being a good setting for him, and credit to Carson Beck for not even mentioning Georgia. That's
Joe,
the whole point here.
I'll throw another one out there to you. Some of these situations with quarterbacks that had higher interceptions. We talked about Garrett, that being one. We've talked about Sark and Ewers, that being another. Drew Allar's picks, and we'll talk about him in just a moment. They're up. The Notre Dame game, like, vastly comes to my mind here, and maybe Penn State and USC from a year ago where he threw 3 picks. But it comes to my mind in the sense of, man, the best thing that you can do for a young quarterback is run the ball. At least give the attempt to, or give him a swing pass. Do something. But I do think some of this was on Georgia. Joe, before we move on from Carson Beck here, he said on XM Radio as well that he's been 100% for a couple months now. He said those 4 months taught me more than anything I've ever been through in my entire life. He said the 4 months, it was really just a lot of rotation and getting the rehab under control before I could start throwing. Carson Beck also states in this comment that it was easily the toughest – oh, I'm rereading that. Easiest, toughest part of my life, but it also might have been the calmest. I thought that was interesting because what happened in those 4 months? All the off-field bullshit, all the stuff that he felt like he didn't want to deal with. Now, I don't know if I'm completely buying in. I still want to see him throw the football around a little bit. That surgery is not an easy one to come back from. Joe, the number one thing for baseball guys that does not return is accuracy. It's the number one thing that is off. Let's see what happens here. But, man, it is a little refreshing to hear some of these things he's saying.
Yeah, again, overall, I just think that the tone of his comments are exactly what they need to be in order for Miami to hit the ground running, in order for Carson Beck to get back to his form, for everything to work out this season, and for Miami to reach the college football playoff. So I'm very proud of him. I think that this has been a really good bit of reflection.
For sure. Speaking about the University of Miami here, Joe, we got to talk about the Miami Hurricanes and what we think about them being at ACC Media Days. Mario Cristobal was also at the podium this week as well, and saying that after week 4 from a season ago, it was a downturn for our defense. We slipped defensively, and I don't want to blame anyone. I should have asked, and I do ask, what I could have done better. Joe, when we look at the University of Miami going into 2025, and we talk about Cristobal's comments and about what they were doing defensively, the thing that comes to mind for me was literally what you and I went through the entire year last year when talking about the University of Miami. Do you remember what it was? It was literally us coming out here every week and me saying, you're going to get burned by this secondary at some point or another. Joe, they feel like that they have fixed that, and even Cristobal has brought that up. I guess your thoughts this week about Cristobal saying that he thinks they're going to be much, much better defensively going into the season.
So I have been pretty optimistic about what Corey Heatherman's going to do. And that the big part of the quote that he said that I think makes Miami fans feel better about this upcoming season is that he went as far as to say, we have enough evidence for us to feel comfortable in bringing him in, and he hasn't disappointed. I like that he's setting the tone early. I know that there's not anything that's been proven, though. Like that, nothing's happened on the field yet, so we can't jump to conclusions that this suddenly resolves every problem. I think it's worth noting, it's something that we've talked about a lot with this transition, is that last year they had the 5th least amount of yards allowed per game at Minnesota, 285.7, which is an insanely low number in modern football. That is like a 1980s level number that they were able to produce. Mm-hmm. Last year, Miami gave up 327.2 yards per game, which we know is one of the worst in the country. I really think that Heatherman is going to be a driving force for their success. And I think that Mario Cristobal is recognizing that there is a lot of pressure on him and on Heatherman to get this defense right. That is what needs to be better this year, ultimately. Like we spent all this time talking about Carson Beck, and I think that one thing we kind of missed, we feel pretty confident that Carson Beck and Shannon Dawson and this offense, the run game, the offensive line, that's going to be fine. It's going to be okay. They're not going to have any issues. Like they're a machine. They're a well-oiled machine right now after the way that they played last year. But they got to get up to par on defense. There's athletes all over that defense that have been banged up, have not played to form. Got to see Ruben Bain come out and dominate the way that we hope that he can dominate before he got hurt last year. So they have to step up to the plate. I stand by my original statements after the hire of Heatherman happened that I think he's going to be able to accomplish it because of the teams that they're facing in the ACC, that they will be able to be much stouter instead of being incredibly leaky every single week.
Joe, not only you say leaky, they were number 1 in the ACC defensively in their secondary and allowing explosive plays. I mean, think of Georgia Tech from a season ago. Think of Syracuse from a season ago. Hell, think of what happened against Virginia Tech and you almost losing that game. I mean, you're an overturn call away from you losing that one. There's a couple of things here. I do not think that they were bad defensively in their front seven with a lot of things that they had and injuries that they had last season. But, Joe, it's the explosive plays that killed them. You know, you look at their rushing defense and you look at what they did a season ago. Joe, they were in the top 20 in run defense. Joe, they just kept getting absolutely obliterated with explosive plays in their secondary. The thing that plagued them a year ago that I don't know if it was necessarily a play calling issue versus a personnel issue, which they have gone out and definitely changed different things in their secondary from a personnel standpoint. Joe, they couldn't get lined up in man-to-man coverage. And we talked about that every single week when we talked about Miami. Just personnel can change that. Xavier Lucas and all of them have played and went through a lot of football. I do think it's changed easily, and I don't like saying something that was so bad a year ago instantly changes. But, Joe, when you bring in different personnel and coaches, there's got to be a difference, because if there's not a difference, then, Mario, it does fall on you. I do think it was a little bit of a shot at Lance Guidry and trying to say, hey, I'm not trying to point blame, but as my grandfather said, everything you say before the word but is dog shit. You can't have the but. You are pointing the finger. All right, well, if you're going to point the finger, you better hope that changes. Joe, here's the real question. Every single year under Mario Cristobal, whether it be at Oregon or last year with Miami, there's been one centric question that's revolved around him at any of these stops. Joe, when is he going to overcome and win games when they matter the most? They are in the ACC championship game a year ago if they can beat Syracuse and Georgia Tech, if they don't falter down the stretch. That is playing Mario Cristobal more than anybody. Just because you left Oregon doesn't mean I forget about what you did at Oregon. Joe, Dan Lanning won the Big Ten in year 3. Now, I understand that you were in the Pac-12. I get all of that. But they're having more success under Dan Lanning. They went undefeated in the regular season. They beat Ohio State at home. Now, Ohio State cleaned their clock when it mattered the most, but that doesn't matter. Joe, the real question is not for me defensively. My question going into this year for Miami and Mario Cristobal specifically, hey, brother, it's time to either poo-poo or get off the pot. Because we've seen so many seasons of you being 10-2, 10-2, 10-2, 10-2, and you're right there in the mix of it. But when it mattered most, you couldn't win it when it mattered.
Well, and I think them getting to that level that you're talking about, it is supported by the improvement on defense. Or, sorry, it's supported by the projected improvement on defense. I think where they faltered last year a lot were in those bigger games where they needed a stop late. They ended up slipping. They ended up making the Syracuse, one of the better opponents that you played last year. You couldn't get the stops late in the fourth quarter when you needed to. I think now when you've got a much better defensive mind, you're going to be able to accomplish that. But I do agree with you that is a piece of this puzzle. That Dan Lanning has always been a good coach up until when they need to step up to the ball. Sorry, Mario Cristobal has always been a good coach, but when it's required of him to get the job done in a championship type setting, to send him to a championship, to win a conference championship, to get to the college football playoff, he has fallen short. They have to get that much further. I'm not saying that Mario needed to address that, but I think that where Mario has done a good job this offseason and also talking about this stuff is that they were very quick to immediately adjust once they realized Guidry was not getting the job done. There are plenty of coaches. We talked about this. There's plenty of coaches that will just sit with their assistants. Lincoln Riley's example A with Grinch. They will just sit with their assistants that they're buddies with and hope that they figure it out eventually, and then it ends up tanking them and setting them back multiple years. So that's where the potential optimism lies.
I mean, look, the bottom line is your secondary. Kyle McCord threw for 380 and 3 touchdowns. I mean, like, you went and revamped it, but Joe, the question becomes, okay, again, Mario's in here saying basically, listen, we're going to be better there. I don't doubt that you'll be better there. I actually agree with you. The question for me is will you be? Because how many times am I going to see you at a program on the edge of doing something good and then falling short? And Miami fans, you're going to come in here and say, here goes Blake again. You got to start asking yourself that question, right? I mean, Joe, let me ask you, am I off base with that at all? Because no. I feel like that he's always there. I mean, and just falls short. And then, Joe, this coming off the situation of you not kneeling the football on 4th down either.
There's a lot of examples that I feel like we could come back to of them getting there, and then falling short.
Joe, we've all heard the saying, everything you say before the word but is bullshit, right? I think everybody that's watching this right now has heard that saying.
Well, you say a lot on the show.
Well,
yeah, I'm joking.
I use the word however to get around it, just so everybody knows.
That's true.
But, however, I need to see it from him. Stop pointing the finger. Elks did send in a super chat, a $5 super chat, says that Carson Beck could have been taking a dig at Georgia, saying he has to be Superman because others around him weren't good enough. Just food for thought. I'm also out on Beck.
Okay. To the two parts here, and thank you for the super chat, Elks. I can't get there on this being a dig because I listened to the press conference. You can tell when somebody's trying to take a shot. I don't think that he was. I think that this was because if you watch the games too and you watch back the film, it doesn't look like a guy who felt like everything around him wasn't working. It felt like a guy that was quite literally looking for the home run play. The interceptions that he threw were balls that he was trying to complete that were like deep shots when he had stuff open underneath in front of him that he would have gone to in 2023. The other part about this, I'm also admittedly a little bit out on Beck as a draft prospect. I have to see him clean up the decision-making, and there's as much as he can talk about it, he still has to do it.
Yeah, that's completely fair. But there also comes a situation where we got to add context in what he said everything before there too. He literally in the same breath, literally talked about how I've been working to clean over my turnovers.
Yeah, he's talking about himself.
Yeah, he's talking about himself. I don't think I don't think he's doing the dig, but it doesn't change our question about Georgia needing to give him some help too. All right, Joe, before we get out of here, James Franklin had some really good words about Drew Allar. Well, why wouldn't you? Now, I did hear our good friend Ryan Roberts. I don't know if he's on the Drew Allar hype train at all here. But regardless of that, Joe, there's a lot of hype coming into the season for Penn State. A lot of people have them as their number one overall team. And that mainly revolves around because they got in what they feel to be the best quarterback in the country returning. James Franklin at Big Ten Media Days had some really good things to say about his quarterback and Drew Allar. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the main comment that he had is that he said that he's made significant leaps every single year. And the other part was that he pointed out that he felt that he had unfinished business with the team that he wanted to complete, and as well as an individual. And he also, I forgot to include in the quote, he is projecting that Drew Allar is going to take another significant leap. He had this whole quote and discussion of the year-by-year progression of how he went from a 3-star recruit that was interested in going to Penn State that eventually became a 5-star and then got to this point where he was getting on the field and then was playing early on in his career, but still having things to work on. I have less to react to what James Franklin said and more to just my thoughts on Drew Allar. It kind of goes along with what Ryan was talking about in the social clip that you're referencing. He does still need to be better. He does still need to be better, specifically in late important game situations. I felt like there was a lot of excuse making for Drew Allar last year with the performance of his receivers. He had the best tight end in the country last year. He had the best running back tandem in the country last year. He had a top 10 offensive line in college football last year. Offensively, every single game other than the Ohio State game and the Notre Dame game, they were dominating with the amount of yards that they were putting up. Even the game against Oregon, they put up really good yards. But when he had to face off against teams that had premier secondaries, he did not play up to par. He didn't. I am not saying that he can't get there, Blake, but this significant leap that we're hoping for with Drew Allar, it can be there because he's supremely talented. But that leap, we need to be more specific. He's got to be better in those tenser situations.
All right. A couple of things there. Number one, you can have the best tight end in the country and do some really good things. If you're in these critical situations, you still need guys to get separation at wide receiver. You cannot – this is my problem with people who push back on Allar. You can't run in here and tell me, and I'm not saying you know what I mean. I don't want to hear the narrative that guys weren't getting separation for Allar against Notre Dame and Oregon in the red zone in these certain situations and say, he's holding on to the ball too long. No shit, he's holding on to the ball too long. There's one massive thing that gets completely missed with Drew Allar that James Franklin brought up here, and it's the most brilliant thing ever. Joe, he went from a 55% completion or 59% completion percentage quarterback to a 67% completion percentage quarterback. That is a massive leap. Were there more turnovers in there? Yes. Were there more interceptions there? Yes. But there also comes a part where one of those games, he had most of those interceptions. All right. You had a really, really bad game. Okay. I'm with it. Drew Allar, I thought, played clean in some of these other games. Again, Joe, Tyler Warren was arguably, and we talked about him so much, probably my favorite player in the draft. I told you during draft coverage I wanted the Saints to draft Tyler Warren. Didn't happen. But the bottom line remains is I don't think last year that he got everything that he needed. They did run the ball for 200 yards per game as a tandem. They did. But when it mattered most against Notre Dame for you to go to the national championship and you had to throw the ball, everybody's like, oh, Drew Allar couldn't perform. They literally couldn't get separation. It's easy for me to take away Tyler Warren. I'm going to say this, but I don't mean it the wrong way. It's easier to take away a guy who's a little bit slower than big receivers that are on the outside. Now, I say all that to say this. You don't have an excuse now. The reason you don't have an excuse now, you brought in Kyron Hudson, you brought in Devonta Ross, and obviously for me and being on the show, you brought in Pena from Syracuse. Buddy, you got weapons now. You better make that leap because everything in the hype going in around you this season and why people think you're the number one team, I got to be real with you, Joe. I'm coming into the season saying this is the best wide receiver room that Penn State has had in a long time. You adding Trevor Pena is a big deal to me, a massive deal. Joe, what are you going to do? This kid Pena went stupid last year. Ross went stupid last year. I think Kyron Hudson was completely misused at USC after seeing all I saw and him playing at USC. I am not out by any stretch on the Drew Allar stuff. Again, when he played his best opponents and he had good secondaries and his receivers couldn't get separation, you want him to work miracles. That's not how that works. I think of Burrow. I think of Bryce Young. I think of all these quarterbacks that stood out and were big-time draft picks. Well, what did they all have? Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, who's your boy from Detroit? Jameson Williams, Henry. I mean, like all of them had dudes that can get separation too. Name another quarterback that has had this much talent without the amount of weapons on the outside.
Well, it doesn't happen often, but I kind of push back, not completely, but slightly, for the fact that Ole Miss went and added Harrison Wallace, who was a part of this bum receiving group that wasn't very good, and he's projected to start at Ole Miss.
They also added Juice Wells, who didn't do shit either.
Look, I'm just trying to point out that there were bodies for him to turn to, but I agree with the statement that you just added in here. And I think that this is the most important part. The setup is big games needs to be better. The finisher is Penn State went and grabbed 3 premier players, 3 of the top 15 receivers in the transfer portal, maybe even top 15. Let's be a little conservative. You went and added all those playmakers. You now have to fulfill that expectation. You can't be in these games with a 50% completion percentage and not stepping up to the plate when you have all of these different options to work with. Not to mention, you're losing Tyler Warren, but the tight end room is still incredibly talented and incredibly deep that you have this upcoming year. There are a lot of options that they're going to be able to turn to. They have to, and specifically Drew Allar has to take advantage of what is being presented to him. We've talked about this on multiple segments, and it needs to continue to be reiterated. And when we do the Big Ten preview, it'll probably get brought up again. They live and die. Their national championship hopes live and die based on if Drew Allar improves in that decision-making that we're talking about, that he takes advantage of what we're discussing. If he does not, they will lose in the quarterfinal, semifinal again, and they will be going home, and they will not win a Big Ten championship game, and it will probably be Oregon who's hoisting that trophy instead.
Hold on. Let me ask, how can we say decision-making when his completion percentage is up 7% with more attempts?
Okay, because as I said, bad games on the schedule, the bad opponents that they had, ran up the box score, put up a ton of great stats. But when we watched the Ohio State game, we watched the Notre Dame game, even if we watched the SMU game, he didn't play great. The errant passes, the ball was fluttering and flailing. There were a lot of bad plays that he had in those games. I'll pull up the stats for those games. His completion percentage was not good in those games.
Okay, then how can people run out here and say that the receivers were getting zero separation? You can't have one and think the other's just going to be magically better. You can't. It's an oxymoron. You can't go out.
Way?
Huh?
In what? Okay, so wait 1 second. Notre Dame, his completion percentage was 52%. Boise State, his completion percent, which was 52%. SMU, his completion percentage was 59. Oregon, it was 51. Ohio State, it was 60. So that was one of his better ones.
The oxymoron for me is you can't come in here and tell me that none of his receivers could get separation. We pull on the film. You got Herbstreit going during the Orange Bowl, literally saying they can't get any separation. These Notre Dame DBs are like glue on these Penn State receivers, and then tell me that he can't complete the ball. No shit, he can't complete the ball.
But not all of that. It's not that binary that it's just receivers aren't open. It's not his fault. It was the nightmare mix of both.
Hold on. Then tell me what you want him to do.
He has 2 talented running backs. He had a very talented tight end that was getting open completely well. It's also Kotelnicki's fault for not running the ball more in the late game situations if they couldn't tackle Singleton.
Go look at the targets for how many times he targeted Tyler Warren against Notre Dame and all those games too. And then come back in here and tell me, oh, well, Tyler Warren had 11 targets. Joe, they were giving Tyler Warren the football and running the football because the receivers couldn't get open.
He was also making a ton of plays with his legs. Like, he also could have expanded the pocket.
Y'all are crazy on this one.
I don't think so. I think that there's evidence that he didn't play well in those games. I think that there's a lot of evidence.
You can't say the decision making is bad because then where do you want him? You want him to check it down the whole time? Joe, if it's 4th and 7 and he's got to get a first down, guess what he's not going to do?
Quarterbacks have made whole careers out of checking it down, but those situations, you're creating situations that didn't exist.
So, I beg your pardon? They were never in a 3rd and 7 against Notre Dame with the game on the line, and his receivers can't get open. That didn't happen?
I'm not saying that in those situations that he has to check down. I think that there are plenty of other alternatives that could have been brought up.
Hold on.
Especially, he's supposed to be one of the most
athletic. Those situations didn't happen. He didn't have a 3rd and 7 where his receivers couldn't get open in the most critical point of the game.
That was when he threw the interception. I mean, I would love to pull up that play, and I'm going to go double check that after we get off this show and double check that everybody was not open.
Hey, I'm out here giving Notre Dame praise, and you're shooting me down on it. You say I'm a Notre Dame hater. Now look at you. Say something nice about LSU for a change.
That's not going to happen. You know that's not going to happen.
One of these days, LSU is going to be good, and I'm going to be an insufferable asshole. All right. We will see y'all again on Sunday. Boy, hey, Joe, by the way, forgot to tell you. Your boy will be out in a college football practice next week.
Ooh, okay. Well, you got to give us a breakdown of how LSU looks.
I'm not doing that. I'm not. We'll see y'all soon. Y'all have a good one. Peace.